stumped him. He stumped him. He stumped him. Nice block. Wow. Great penetration. Surge through the middle of that. Michigan State first and goal. Yeah. Outstanding play.
Because effort, guys, is the cost of admission. Extreme effort, this is like what you got to do just to even be in the program. So this is a process. Yeah, you just keep stacking wins. Aggregation of marginal gains, we'll add them up in the end, we get to where we need to go.
Hit it! Good, be quick, go! Get off the rock.
Execution, and effort to the ball. We're going to execute violently and play with better effort than anybody else we play. You got it? Sure. Let's go, man. All right, get better on three. Get better on three. 1, 2, 3, get better.
Good evening. You are looking live at Inside the Locker Room. I'm your co-host, Brian Mosallam, alongside my co-host, Jason Strayhorn, the Honorable. We have a special guest in studio, 24/7 sports reporter Justin Thinn. How you doing, Justin? How you doing, Jason?
Thanks for having me, guys. Excited to be here in the studio. Hopefully I live up to the pressure that's on me today for filling in for Tom Izzo.
Oh, you got big shoes to
no
fill.
Pressure, Justin.
No pressure. Big shoes to fill.
I'm sure everybody's just as happy with you.
Yeah. I doubt it.
Coach had a conflict that came up that, I think
conflict my ass.
We're going to call it a conflict. But, he got a call. He got invited to the Pistons game, which I'm sure many of you have seen him on at the game right now. He got invited by one Matt Ishbia, and we felt it was appropriate, given all that Matt has done for the university, to excuse Coach from coming on the show. So, it's time well spent.
Excuse. It was an excuse.
It was
absence,
excused absence. Yep, it's an excused absence. But I guess when Matt picks up the phone and invites you, you go. What do you think, Justin?
Yeah, and you guys are stuck with me as a result. So blame Ish.
Well, we are blaming Ish, and that's why Ish owes us a visit on the show. But we'll get Coach. We'll get Ish on here. We'll get him on here one day, and we'll get to him later. But talk a little spring football though. As we know, it's that time of the year, and full pads, full go, full throttle. We had Coach Camp on last week. Offensive line has been, they've been playing light. It's very, very tough to roll 7 linemen during spring ball. Jason, give us your thoughts on how spring ball is going, what you're hearing, what you've seen. I know you're up there. You've been up there a few times.
Honestly, I've seen a lot of improvement, especially when you look at the secondary for Michigan State defensively. An area of concern a year ago during the season, as giving up huge big plays in critical games against Purdue, and obviously down the stretch, when it really mattered against Ohio State and Columbus, were it's an area of need, and you can see with the moves that have been made in the defensive secondary as far as coaching is concerned. Mel Tucker taking the reins and becoming essentially the cornerbacks coach himself. You can see there's a definite upgrade in assignment sound football, and obviously the talent upgrade when you look at the 2 corners right now who are leading the depth chart. And we'll talk to Justin more about that. When you look at Amir Speed, and also from Georgia on the other side, looking at Ronald Williams from the University of Alabama, both transfers. Justin, what have you heard? That's what I'm interested in, because you guys are on the side when it comes to what the players are doing, what they're thinking, what their families know, and what the coaches are saying as well. So that holistic view, as far as the spring is concerned, give us your honest opinion of what's been going on at Michigan State.
Right. So kind of like you were touching on there, the defensive backfield is very intriguing right now. With Amir Speed joining the fold and pretty much everyone else returning last year that had a major role, Michigan State has a lot of continuity and stability there, with probably one of the best corners now joining the team compared to who was there last year. I think Amir Speed and Ronald Williams will probably be the 2 starting corners. You're looking at Angelo Gross and Xavier Henderson probably as the 2 safeties, probably playing around with that free safety role a little bit and maybe seeing what else they can do there. But and then if you look at a guy like Chester Kimbrough, maybe looking at a spot in that nickelback area, you kind of have 3 true cover corners there, which is a little different than what Michigan State did last year. They kind of had a 4-2-5 last year that was really just a 4-3, but with the nickel playing off the line. Now, in this case, if you do see that 4-2-5 with the nickel being a pure corner like Kimbrough, now you're looking at an NFL kind of a 4-2-5 nickel defense. So that storyline is something that's really sticking out to me, and you're able to do that by adding someone like Amir Speed and him kind of meeting expectations of what he was supposed to do when he got here. And by all accounts, he has done so. He's been very impressive. I know Stephen Brooks and Corey Robinson, they've been attending. They're my colleagues. They've been attending the spring ball. He meets the eye test, and from all we've heard, his play matches his last name, and he's a physical guy. So really intrigued by the versatility they're going to have in the defensive backfield and what that's going to allow for them to do schematically in regards to that 4-2-5 shift I was talking about. Other than that, nothing really major that I'm hearing other than the offensive line. As everyone has heard, it's thin right now. There's some guys that are out. I know Coach Cap was talking about that in a presser recently. He talked about that with you guys. So it's a work in progress, but a lot of young guys are getting reps, and I guess that's the bright way to look at it right now.
Did I hear Green was out? Was that?
So Green hasn't enrolled yet.
He hasn't come. He's coming
Washington
in May.
State, yeah.
It's coming in May.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
It's coming in May.
Yep.
And so I want to echo what you were talking about Amir Speed. You know, he looks the part, and everybody says his name.
Yeah.
He's got the what we're looking for in the back end, and there's length, right? I mean, we haven't had length in the back end in a long time.
Yep.
And, but the best way to protect the secondary is to rush the quarterback.
Right.
And if you get the D-line going, I know we brought in Brandon Jordan, who's a pass rush specialist, and by all accounts, rave reviews so far from the D-line, especially the D-ends, and what we're hearing the different techniques that are being taught. And one name that I heard that going back to the offensive line was Spencer Booker. He's beginning to come
Brown,
on. I'm sorry, Spencer Brown. He's been beginning to really.
He does look like a Booker.
He does, yeah, right. But he's really beginning to come into his own, and by hearing from some of the coaches, I mean, he can be a good one day.
Yep.
That's what I'm hearing. And
Big fella out of Walled Lake Western, really coming into his own. Had a very good bowl game when you look at his performance against Pitt.
Yep.
In the Peach Bowl. Went against some top talent there. They very much known for their pass rush and getting to the quarterback. And he held his own and did a phenomenal job and has been able to change his body and get stronger. And he's going to continue to do that and work on that throughout the summer in order to solidify himself as a, for sure, day one starter.
Right.
Is it me, or does it feel like football is and I know we talked about this before, but a 12-month season now, right? I mean, the excitement around the program, and the way that the program keeps everybody engaged, it's got us all excited. I mean, we're actually, I never used to pay attention to spring ball.
Right.
Matter of fact, I hated spring football. Just absolutely. Because all you do, you blow your head up. I mean, there was. How about the inside run? Three linemen versus 3 O linemen versus 3 D linemen and the running back with the ball. Gee, I wonder what we're doing. And all you do is just crash into each other.
Yeah.
I mean, no play action, no figure. Everybody in the building knew they're running the ball, and it was just rep after rep after rep, and that's what football is. It's about rep, timing, execution, and I believe who did we hear? Coach Hawkins the other day said that he felt Jaden Reed could be the best receiver, one of the best receivers we've ever had, which is great to hear. I hear Peyton's having a great camp, and the second string quarterback is he's really what Coach Johnson said, 300% better.
Yeah, that's what he said. Just the quarterback room as a whole, I'm pretty excited about right now. I know, as usual, Mel Tucker is very complimentary of even Noah Kim. That's a guy that has been someone he has complimented here this year, last year. I think that's because Mel Tucker kind of sees him as a very competent, valuable backup quarterback, somebody you'd ideally like to see stick around. He's a guy that is making waves, and then obviously Caden Hauser. That's the name. That's the guy everyone wants to talk about. He's come in, he's crushed it from the strength and conditioning element. He's up to 215, so he's 6'4", 215. Might even be up to 218 now. So he's not going to be there totally in terms of leadership and setting up the offense and making sure everything runs smoothly. That'll come with time, which he has, thanks to Peyton Thorne being here. But really excited about the future of the room. I think that you have 4 guys there that if something were to happen, which I hope not, but if something were to happen, you're not going to lose games because of the quarterback position.
Jason, talk a little bit about the impact so far that we're getting rave reviews on Aaron Brule and Jacoby Windman, and just kind of the lateral speed that a new element of speed that we're seeing there in that new 4.25 kind of makeshift, or not makeshift, but just the speed that they brought and the production that they brought. But what are you hearing about the kind of spring that they're having?
These are guys who have an element of athleticism that we haven't seen since a guy like Antoine Simmons, if you recall.
Yeah.
A guy who would look like a video game player sometimes on that field when he would make, 14, 16 tackles a game running sideline to sideline. The only thing Antoine Simmons was 6'2". And both of these guys are that. When you talk about Jacoby Windman and also Aaron Brule. These guys transfers from UNLV and Mississippi State respectively are absolutely phenomenal when you look at how they can read, react, and chase down the ball, the way that they are able to recognize passing situations and get deep in coverage or get into the flat and be able to stretch the field and spill that fast running back to the sideline. That's what you want. You want to be able to have leverage as a linebacker and be able to create, not allow cutback lanes. That's the difference. When you have a slower linebacker than guys like K9, Kenneth Walker, as we've seen a year ago, he was able to turn the corner and break an 80-yarder on you. When you have fast guys that can seal that edge and can maintain leverage and make the guy run out of bounds in that same scenario. So that is a huge, I would say, tool to have in your toolbox if you're Scotty Hazelton calling the plays on the defense for Michigan State.
Not to bounce around, but let's go back to like a Chris Bogle, who we're hearing he's having a great camp as well. Mm-hmm. I believe he came out the other day and said that he believes we can win a national championship. And just the mentality, the expectation of this program. We're no longer talking about being in the discussion in November for the Big Ten East. I mean, we're talking about national championships.
Yeah.
And this is the mentality that I think Mel Tucker really, truly believes and wants to build here. And when you talk to these young men, and every time that they're always talking, they're talking about winning a natty. And I don't remember us constantly talking day in and day out about it. You're really seeing a cultural shift in the program. It shifted from, competing for championships in November in the Big Ten East to winning a natty. And just that shift in that mindset, really impressive.
Yeah.
Real impressive,
yeah. If there's anyone in the building that even mentions a goal short of winning a national title, they will be corrected by anyone that is around them. That is 100% what everyone is thinking in that locker room. And kind of like you were saying, that's something that Chris Bogle has said, despite just coming from the outside recently. And Amir Speed won a national title at Georgia, and he came in and said Michigan State, he believes, has the pieces. They just need to put it together. So these are guys, if a champion is saying that, someone that just had a championship parade down in Georgia recently is giving those kind of assessments of the current program he's at, I think you can kind of start to get a little excited about the culture here that's here at least.
Mark my words
Great
about
point,
it.
Justin. Great point. And to that point, Amir Speed, Georgia national title, and Bogle, as you said, Brian, he's a University of Florida transfer. Both SEC school guys with those SEC bodies playing in East Lansing right now and looking around that locker room and in that field and saying exactly what we're saying, that this team has the pieces to put together a national championship run together. That's exciting.
You're exactly right, because do they pass the eyeball test? Mm-hmm. And when you have SEC guys coming in here, and especially one who just won a natty, and they're looking around that locker room and they're seeing and they're playing every day, and they're commenting publicly that they believe they have the pieces to win it. It really has to get you excited. It really does. Alex, we lost it, I think. Oh, there it goes. What? I lost my train of thought. Alex was talking about.
But it gets you excited when you think about, the type of players who are saying this. This isn't guys just transferred in from Western Michigan.
With all due respect.
Well, with all due respect, because one of the best players we have on our team did just that, Jaden Reed, and that's okay, But this says more when these guys are coming out of those locker rooms with those type of players that we all hear about with the SEC. So competing in the Big Ten at a high level and getting to that college football playoff is the goal, and you're seeing that. And look, guys, this is the spring. We don't have a full offensive line. There's a ton of talent, as Justin, I'm sure you can speak to this, that hasn't arrived yet. We talked about Green from Washington State, but there's a lot of transfers and high school kids that will be coming here in the fall that are dynamite athletes that are going to contribute in the fall. No doubt about it.
Yeah, for sure. I know we have a Pac-12 Player of the Year in Jarek Broussard, who's not even here. And that's going to be, I guess you can estimate, half of the running game, if not more. And you have some freshmen, too. Like you said, Braden Miller, he's a very underrated tackle from Colorado. You have playing time available at the offensive tackle spots, at least in the 2 deep, if not the starting lineup. That's pretty much shored up. But, yeah, there's guys here. You can pick and choose spots where you can see contributions from guys that are not even here. And you raise a great point there. And Broussard is the name that everyone goes to. But you never know who else can emerge from this freshman class. It's a solid one. There are openings in the 2 deep. And I think absolutely you can see some guys that come in and just hit the ground running. And that's going to be an intriguing storyline to watch here in fall camp for sure.
I have no doubt in my mind, and I believe I can speak for Jason and for Justin, I have no doubt in my mind that before Mel Tucker leaves, and let's hope he never does, Mel Tucker will win a national championship at Michigan State University. You can take that to the bank.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. And, and one position that I'm excited about that I guess we could call low-hanging fruit will be the tight end position, because this is a position that you don't really need to have a lot of time in studying and trying to figure things out. If you're a great athlete, it's been proven. You can get guys off the basketball court that are great athletes and bring them in to a football environment. They can play tight end, and all they got to do is run that seam route, go run a corner route, go get the ball, man. And it's an instant mismatch for defenses when you have those type of players. And we have the transfer from Illinois. We have some freshmen.
Oh, yeah.
Some great freshman players.
Barker.
A kid out of Arizona. There's a lot of talent that's going to be coming here to Michigan State in the fall that I'm very excited about seeing. And looking at what Georgia did. Look at Georgia's offense when they had not just 2, 3 tight ends. They sometimes had 4 tight ends in the formation. And all of them between 6'4" to 6'8", all of them extremely athletic, and can make plays. That puts a tremendous amount of stress on opposing defenses, and that's a place that I think Jake Johnson is going to just flourish with his play calling ability.
Right, and that's a great point. You made a couple of great points there too, in addition to, so when you look at Georgia, you kind of see who was their best tight end. It was Brock Bowers. He was a true freshman. Not a lot of time is required to get acclimated as a tight end, and that brings me to the point of Jack Nickel. He's a guy coming in from the state of Georgia, Alpharetta Milton High School. He has the blocking down. I would go as far as to say he's the best blocking tight end on the roster by the opening kickoff when the season starts in September. I guess Barker, I haven't seen all of his blocking footage yet, but he's a guy that's coming in just blocking like crazy.
You've been raving about his blocking for a while, and you believe he was underrated to the stars. You thought he deserved more stars.
I will actually give a tidbit here of before he committed. This was around the time that he was offered, which was right after he decommitted from Notre Dame. I had a Notre Dame insider, Kevin Sinclair. He texted me and said, "This is the best blocking tight end I have ever covered in my time as a recruiting insider." He said, "I would like to see him do a little more in the receiving game." This was before his senior year. But blocking-wise, he's all the way there. Senior year started, he was catching hitch routes, taking them down the field, seam routes down the field. So I don't want to say he's just a finished product, because he needs to do a lot more in the receiving game still. But the reason that a lot of tight ends stay off the field as freshmen is because of blocking, and he will not have that issue. So you combine Barker, as you were talking about, with maybe if Malik Carr blocks a little better here this upcoming season, Jack Nickel, Tyler Hunt is back. I think you're looking at Jay Johnson finally being able to unlock his offense, as he's been waiting to do, because he has a lot of options at tight end this upcoming season.
Very hard to cover a tight end. If you have a tight end that can run, it's very difficult to cover a tight end, let me tell you.
Yep.
Well, that's good stuff. On to basketball a little bit. Let's talk a little MSU basketball here. Max Christie, to test the NBA draft, his status within the NBA draft, recently announced. Well, interesting move. What are your thoughts on that, Justin?
So I am of the opinion that any kid that plays more than 25 minutes per game for a winning program, a high major program, whatever you want to call it, should test waters as a freshman or sophomore if they're already playing that much at that level, because what that allows you to do at the very least is you go to the combine, you network, you kind of get a gauge on where you are seen in the eyes of the people that will be dictating your future at the next step. So any freshman that's playing a lot for a winning program, go ahead and do this. When it comes to Christie and what I think he should do as his next step after this common sense step, I think he could kind of look at the blueprint of somebody like Jaden Ivey, someone like a Keegan Murray, different position, but that's kind of the blueprint that I see in his future, where freshman year they're just getting their feet wet, averaging single-digit points, go hit the gym hard in the offseason, put on some weight, come back their sophomore year and take a huge jump. So I think definitely he should come back, and I agree with this decision to go in the draft, and if he comes back, I expect him to have a solid year and a big leap next year.
Does he come back?
If I had to place a bet, I would say yes, he does.
Mr. Strayhorn?
That is not on any inside information.
Oh, for sure. I think he's coming back. He's not going to be a lottery pick by any stretch of the imagination this year, but I think that he does have an opportunity to get in the discussion of that if he has a great offseason, like Justin just said. You know, he's got the pedigree. His mother, I think, was the leading all-time scorer at Northwestern. So he's got a pedigree in basketball. He's got the athleticism. You can tell he just needs a little bit more seasoning. That's all he needs, really, to take it to the next level and be an absolute star. I think of him as being a guy who has a little bit more upside than even a Brandon from excuse me, I'm losing his last name from the San Antonio Spurs.
Bryn Forbes.
Bryn Forbes.
Yes.
Bryn Forbes.
Oh yeah, I think he's a little more decorated than Bryn really came. I mean, Bryn,
Yeah.
nobody expected him to have the
Think
NBA
about that.
career that he's had, you know. But
Right.
if you know, all the rumors about problems with his family and stuff, none of that's true. None of that's true. If I had to guess on is he staying or he's going, I believe he will leave. He'll leave to the draft. I think he's gone. That's
Interesting.
That's what I believe.
Wow.
I think his days in East Lansing are done. Just
You love counting people out.
Just
You
my
love
thoughts.
counting them
Those
out.
are just my thoughts. You know, I hope I'm wrong. You know, DJ. How about DJ? 19 years.
How about that?
Dwayne Stevens.
Happy for the big fellow.
Happy for the big fella, huh?
Yep.
Getting coached, named head coach, Western Michigan University. Well deserved. Coach Izzo's confidant. Been with him 19 years. I believe out of Ferndale. I remember watching him out of high school. And then obviously playing at MSU and
Yep.
being a Spartan for life. And good for him.
Yeah.
You know, what does this mean to losing a guy like Dwayne Stevens to the program?
Yeah.
How do you take that?
I mean, I guess the first thing I kind of want to touch on here is how cool was it to see at the introductory press conference the whole Spartan family kind of show up.
Oh,
him there.
yeah. Look at that.
Yeah.
That's right there. I'm telling you.
So cool right there.
But that's the loyalty that Coach Izzo teaches. That's
Yep.
the culture that Coach builds
Yep.
around his program.
Yeah.
I wouldn't expect anything less than that, you know.
Right.
And that's really a testament to Coach and to the culture and to what he's built over there. And while, you know, a lot of us, you know, see him rant and rave and scream and yell and that, his former players and people that have played for him die on him, love him, are close to him, are fiercely loyal to him for a reason.
Yeah.
It's because of stuff like that.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
how he builds culture. So
Right. But yeah, so in terms of kind of what it means for the program, so for Spartan fans, I guess they first of all get a new kind of team to root for, cheering for DJ's success over there down the road in Kalamazoo. But you also get an opportunity here to see what Tom Izzo does with this opportunity he has in front of him to make a new hire. I was really impressed with the quote that Graham Couch got put together from Izzo himself, kind of talking about how this is an opportunity for him to
read
get
it.
somebody.
Because there's a great quote from Graham. Read that quote.
All right, sounds good. I think it'll be kind of an important hire for me, and I'm going to try to get someone who is, I wouldn't say young, has some experience, but also has some vigor and some energy. I don't know who right now, and everybody will give names. Put it this way. I've got some guys that I think about, but no one who really... I would want to talk to some people. I'm going to talk to some people. I'm going to talk to some coaches, but I think it's someone that's got to have an understanding of this new world that we're in as far as the transfer portal and NIL. And relationships with kids are going to be as important as they have ever been. And so I want someone who's going to spend a lot of time with my guys, a lot of time. The two parts.
Interesting quote
I love
here.
that, man.
Yes. Love
Right?
Man, we
Does
need the whistles like that. That's
Yeah.
confetti.
I
Everywhere.
mean,
that statement right there.
Right. Short of him announcing his Twitter handle in this quote, this is earth-shattering stuff here.
It is. It really is.
He's acknowledging, the relationships with the players and somebody younger with more energy, NIL, portal.
Yep.
And he's really acknowledging this new era of college basketball. And when he talks about this is an important hire for me, I take it as he sees that he needs to adapt, and he sees that the game is evolving.
Right.
And this is a very encouraging quote that he gave Graham. And what are your thoughts on it?
I love it. I think as we have all kind of come to a conclusion that Izzo's not going anywhere in the next couple of years or so. He's here.
got longer than 5 years.
Yeah.
He's not going anywhere. I'm telling you that right now.
Right.
That's my prediction.
Right. Last summer, my prediction was kind of he would see the 2021 graduating class through. That goes out the window. My prediction was wrong. So with that being said, this is exactly the kind of quote you want from somebody who you might have some fears about. Is he going to adapt? Is he not? This is the kind of energy you want that coach to put out there at this point in his career. He's a guy that understands that, hey, I might have some blind spots when it comes to NIL and the transfer portal. That's why it's integral for me to make sure that the person I hire has those sort of as their strong suits. So I think if that is the case and you get someone that understands leveraging NIL, you get somebody that understands how to use the portal to strategically build a roster. I'm not talking about like Arkansas where your whole starting lineup is a transfer, but if you can get a center and a winger, something like that, Christie comes back, Michigan State has as good of a team as anybody next year. So you have an assistant that can help you put those pieces in place. I think the future is as bright as ever in East Lansing.
That's a great point, Justin. And Brian, to that point, to me, it's what Izzo didn't say. It was the key. And what he didn't say was, hey, I don't care what anybody else is saying. We're going to hire from within. We're going to close ranks. We're going to do things our way.
Right.
That's what he did not say. So that's what I think people are afraid of, and we've been talking about that on this show. Like, will he embrace? Will Izzo embrace the new culture of the transfer portal and NIL? We asked Mateen about it, and Mateen kind of hinted like, listen, because he said, hey, Izzo's a great coach, but a better man. And he said that he hinted that he's going to do whatever it takes to get to that next level. And you're seeing evidence of that right there in that quote that Justin just so eloquently read for all of us, that Izzo is in when it comes to the NIL and the transfer portal. And we said it before, and I'll say it again. Look out when Izzo gets down with the NIL and the transfer portal, because let me tell you something, there's no better coach when it comes to being able to coach X's and O's and getting guys ready for March than him. And all he needs is the talent, and that's where he's going to get it, through the portal and NIL.
Here's my thing, is that, basketball has had a nasty underbelly for years. I mean, everybody knows. I mean, the nets they cut down Monday night were some of the most expensive nets anybody ever cut down.
Yep.
A dollar bill
Yep.
over there, Kansas.
Yeah, went over the luxury tax.
I mean, they got them on FBI wiretaps. You know, I mean, cutting down expensive nets.
Yep.
You know, I mean, let's just be honest. You know, if coach embraces NIL, this is a way for him who. The Feds proved it is as honest as a day is long. Doesn't pay players. Right. If he embraces NIL, this is an advantage, in my opinion, for him and for Michigan State. Yeah. Because now it allows you to play by the same rules that everybody else is playing by.
Absolutely. Think about all the guys who rumors have it they were really close to committing to Michigan State. But Dollar Bill Self slid the bag, and they went down there. So when that's kind of the reason that you're not getting some of these guys, you take that reasoning away. What's stopping these guys to come and join the fold here?
That's it. Yeah. I mean, if I'm Coach Izzo, and I look at one of my best friends, Nick Saban, 7 years old, has adapted, continues to play for championships, and is in the discussion every year. Has done very well adapting. NIL, in my opinion, helps a program as clean as Tom Izzo, and as long as he goes in the portal and gets a coach. Go in the portal, get us a 7-footer, get us somebody underneath. We'll talk next week. Next week we'll talk about which players we want you to get.
One of them Petri dish guys. One of them
one of them Petri dish guys. Yep. Ivan Drago guys.
Yeah.
We'll talk next week. Next week, Coach, we're gonna give you the blueprints to winning that second natty. We'll get it taken care of.
I'll leave a list right here. Don't move it.
Hold on, Justin. And listen, we don't want to just hammer on Kansas because there's been a lot of players over the years that have been in the discussion with Michigan State, and then there's been guys, uncles that have come through and slipped the offer, here's the number to Izzo's camp, and let's not call it Izzo. And, obviously Izzo doesn't play by those rules, and those kids end up at, Kansas. They end up at Michigan. They end up at Duke.
Yep.
Definitely. They do end up at Duke.
Absolutely.
They absolutely end up at Duke.
Yeah,
they sure
do. Nobody
do.
wants to talk about that. Okay?
Yeah.
Nobody wants to talk about that. I know they thank God for Coach K. He's a great coach, and he's done a lot against Izzo, but there's a difference between how he conducts business and how Izzo has conducted business in the rules that we all have to play by.
Right.
Before. Now it's different. It's a total different discussion right now. I know it used to be taboo, but now it's totally legal. The NCAA has literally taken their hands off and said, you know what, this is illegal. The Supreme Court has spoken and said there is no other place in society where this would not be considered illegal. This is a monopoly. This is crazy, the way that they have been treating players over the last, 100 years. So, yes.
Yeah.
Tom Izzo now has the opportunity to do what those programs were doing legally.
Right.
That changed the playing field.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole thing about it is, we all agree that players should have been getting paid. That's not what we're against. It was amateur exploitation what was happening before.
No question.
But when you have a school like Duke who is over here just buying their way to national titles, you have ESPN with their Duke media, with their Jay Billis and their Jay Williams and their Duke EV. You have these guys sitting there and telling you, Duke, this is how you win. This is the culture. This is basketball. It just gets swept under the rug. And then you're basically incentivized to cheat. And there's no incentive to playing it cleanly. So NIL, very good news. I guess that's really my only point.
I don't know if you know this, but Duke's in the bonus already. Yeah, they're already in the bonus. They're in the bonus.
They're in our bracket, in the 2023 bracket.
Hey, I want to give a quick shout out to our MSU women's gymnastics team. What a great year. Took third in the regionals, highest scoring program history, scoring a 197.650. to the women's gymnastics team, congratulations. What a great run. Great year. Very proud of you. Spartan Nation is very, very proud of you. Congratulations. Go Green. Wishing you all the best the following year. Also want to give a huge shout out to James Pyatt, the the national amateur champion, playing in the Masters. Do we got that tweet of who he's playing with? I mean, he is playing with some heavy company there, boy. Heavy, heavy company. I believe Justin Rogers was ranked 7th in the country. Justin Thomas. Justin Thomas. I'm sorry. And then he's playing with the former last year's Master winner, who won the Masters. Got to give him a shout out. What an experience, huh?
Yeah.
To be able to play the Masters as an amateur, so proud.
Amazing.
That is just incredible.
That's MSU's #1 NIL athlete right there.
Right there.
Yeah.
Absolutely, right there.
Yeah.
No question about it.
What a story.
What a great story. Let's get into our little segment here, overheard in our locker room 30 years ago. We want to pick one topic or two, and expand on it and hopefully not get canceled. Because we're talking about 1993 in our locker room.
How
about Harbs?
Completely taking our guest off the show.
Well, he can talk. He wasn't born
yet.
He's
not even 30 years old.
Well, we're going to talk about our locker room, and then he's going to talk about how it's perceived today. He's 22 or he's
23.
23, sorry.
23.
Come on, man. Come on.
Yeah. How about Harbs inviting Kaepernick to practice? Do we have any video of that? That was an interesting, right? Quote. So for those that didn't see, Jim Harbaugh invited Colin Kaepernick to their spring game for a little exhibition to throw to was it the free agent receivers or to Michigan receivers?
I think it was free agent receivers, and then a few scouts were there as present as well.
Yeah, a couple scouts were there, and then we had MSU Twitter come and attack, and there was one about what Harbaugh said back when Kaepernick kneeled that he didn't respect him, and everybody who's not familiar with Harbaugh and Kaepernick's history, Cap played for Harbaugh at the 49ers. Mm-hmm. Jason, what would 30 years ago? How would that have sounded or looked in our locker room? We know the attention, the politics, everything that's gone on with what Colin Kaepernick has done. We know how there's been a polarizing issue. He hasn't played football, and he comes to, how would that have been perceived in our locker room?
Hey man, let me tell you something. Like when you talk about Colin Kaepernick and Jim Harbaugh, I think that the history is tainted a little bit. This is a guy who pretty much created Colin Kaepernick. Kaepernick, if you can recall, was the backup to Alex Smith with the 49ers. Alex Smith got hurt, and they brought Colin Kaepernick in when Alex Smith was healed and ready to come back to play. Jim Harbaugh made the controversial decision at the time to allow a starting quarterback to lose his job to injury, essentially, and move on from Alex Smith and go on with Colin Kaepernick, and which then, the rest of that story is history. He plays into a Super Bowl. He gets $100+ million contract. But you saw Colin Kaepernick, once the NFL caught up to his skill level, his skills looked to diminish. He was kind of a running quarterback, athletic. He didn't have a great throwing motion. It wasn't that great of a player. Let's just be quite honest about this, guys. Everybody forgets that. As a player, he was on his way out, and then the peaceful protest started. And in my opinion, that had him at a position of being untouchable, uncuttable. And then the politics got involved, and it really made a martyr out of the young man because what he was standing for was just. And the courts ruled so. But as a football, take that piece aside, and we're going just directly to football. I don't know if he is of the ability at this point, because where he was 5, 6, 7 years ago, it was already on its way down. It's much more difficult as an older man to get back into the NFL when your skills had already started to diminish. And I didn't see anything this weekend at Michigan and Ann Arbor that can say that, hey, oh, well, this guy's doing something that the younger players that they can get for a lot cheaper it can do. And that's my opinion. And let's see how things play out. And I don't think in that case that this is a good old boy network type of situation. There are plenty of those. When you look at the coaching travesties that are going on with minorities and coaching in the NFL, those are real. And where you have absolute guys who are qualified who are being passed over. When you're talking about Colin Kaepernick, it's a little different. It's a little dicey, more dicey of a situation. And I think this is more of the Michigan hype machine, and Jim Harbaugh sees this as a way to capitalize on that in order to bring more cameras and more eyeballs.
But that's what I want to go to there for a second. So, was this a good move by Harbaugh? Was it a marketing ploy? Was it I'm going to do you a solid because you played for me? I'm going to show how loyal I was. You have conservative fan base.
Yes.
You have liberal fan base. You divided your fan base. Does that help or hurt their program? Justin, what do you think?
So I don't really see the benefit of doing this now. I think kind of what Jason was saying there, looking at the football component alone, Cap is about 37 years old, I want to say. Maybe I'm wrong, 36, something like that.
But he wasn't there for the football component.
Right. So right now at this point in time, you're not really doing much for his football career, as you're saying. The time to do this would have been back in 2016, back when, like Jason's saying, I don't think he was probably good enough to be a starting quarterback at that point in his career, but I think he was definitely good enough to be on a roster. There's no way he wasn't a top 96 quarterback. That's when, if Harbaugh was kind of genuine in his attempt to revitalize Kaepernick's career, if that's what he wanted to do, that's the time for this. To do it now, after a 6-year hiatus, I'm kind of missing the point here.
What was the point? I mean, if you're running a program and you never want to be a battleground. You never want your university. You never want to divide your alumni and your fan base.
Yeah.
And if anything, that did that. What was the point of that? That's
right.
What did they stand to gain from that?
And even if Harbaugh wanted to kind of remedy his original stance, if he didn't believe that anymore of how he kind of put down Kaepernick back in the day, he could have just kind of came out with a public sense of support. But to kind of have him throw in front of scouts after a 6-year hiatus, that's not really even the way to kind of undo your original stance where he was kind of bashing Kaepernick. So again, even from the personal, like helping a friend side, I'm still just kind of missing the point here.
I thought it was just kind of out of nowhere, really. Right?
Yeah.
At a spring game, let's do an exhibition, a throwing exhibition with Colin Kaepernick. I didn't really understand the whole purpose, idea, and I know it was, I believe, Wolverines for Racism asked him to do it, and there was an organization that brought him on campus. And I mean, I'm all for it. Doesn't matter. It's not our program. I'm just saying from a fan base point. Clearly, if you read the fan base, they're clearly divided on the topic, and I don't understand the. But I get. If you're trying to make a point about racism, and if you feel that this is something that will help, quell some of that. Like I can see that point of view as well. But obviously there are pros and cons to both, and I felt like it was just out of nowhere. Right. It wasn't something that was natural.
Right.
Per se,
yeah. Exactly. Like if, like we're saying, like if you wanted to make a statement and say, I take back what I said in 2016. Now I kind of want to support what Kaepernick was doing. You just make him the honorary captain or something. You don't kind of peddle him out there in front of scouts after a 6-year retirement and do that component of it. It kind of seemed unnatural, like you were saying, kind of showy, not kind of without an objective.
I think if you make him an honorary captain,
disingenuous is the word.
Yeah. I mean, trotting him out in front of 20,000 people at a spring game. Yeah. That's one thing, where nobody's really paying attention to football. Making him an honorary captain, if you got guts, you do that. Right. If you really want to take a position on it, you do something like that. Anyway, on the recruiting, Justin. That's why we got Justin here. I'll tell you, Justin, and. We saw the latest rankings. If you want to talk a little bit about what we're ranked, our latest rankings. I know there are 3 highly coveted targets that the staff is pursuing. One being the linebacker Jordan Hall out of IMG in Florida. I know he's visiting MSU. I don't believe he's visited yet.
He actually has visited So he visited last summer, then he visited for a game during the season, and then he visited this past January. So that's actually one of the more impressive components of that recruitment, and almost any recruitment, is you have a 4-star linebacker from IMG with offers from a lot of schools who on his own dime has come to campus 3 times and is going to be taking an official visit to Michigan State in June. And that's very impressive, and I think that's a strong indicator of his interest in Michigan State. And that's great to hear if you're a Spartan fan.
Wow. So then Ruben Owens, who's a 5-star running back out of Texas, is visiting April 16th.
Yeah.
And the staff is obviously very high on him.
Right. I believe Ruben Owens actually is now he is the #1 running back, according to 24/7 in the 2023 class. He's a guy from Texas. He obviously, the competition down there. You can see the highlights up there. Kid is electric. Could start right away. I mean, I guess you have to see what Michigan State has going on, but he has the ability to start right away at most schools. His trainer is somebody that took a trip up to Michigan State recently with a 2025 wide receiver whose name is escaping me right now. But that is a recruitment where Michigan State is starting to make some moves there. I will transition this to the other guy that is on the list here, and David Hicks. The 5-star defensive end, the defensive tackle possibly, out of Texas. They have the same trainer, both of those guys, 5 stars from Texas. So if you start to have some kind of interest in the people that are counseling these guys, handling these guys, then you are able to kind of have a better shot at these recruitments. So good job on Michigan State kind of getting him up to campus so he can go ahead and spread the word of the energy, the vibes here, and take it down to his 5-star guys down in Texas.
I mean, when's the last time we had the #1 running back in the country visit Michigan State University?
I do not have the answer to that question.
I mean, think about that. And look at, and when is, how many?
A long time.
I know, and a 5-star defensive tackle out of Texas.
4th ranked kid in the nation.
I mean, where is any
The
word?
defensive tackle's a 4th ranked player? Or
Yes.
4th ranked
Yeah.
defensive tackle?
4th ranked player in the nation.
Yeah, I tell you, David Hicks, Ruben
So that would be
Owens.
#1 defensive tackle, I would imagine.
I think so. I believe so.
That is, I mean, so we got the
Think
#1
about that. Those are 2,
Yeah.
two #1s.
2 #1s visiting Michigan State University, and I cannot recall a time that has ever happened. You think Mel Tucker's changing the culture a bit?
Absolutely.
Just a bit.
And that kind of speaks to the perception of the program, because it would be one thing if, Owens and Hicks were from Michigan or Ohio or Indiana. These are kids from Texas that have offers from every single school you can think of that are coming here. And Owens coming up for the spring game, he's a guy that's, once again, coming on his own dime because it's an unofficial visit, because official visits don't start in April. So you have these guys from far away buying plane tickets and hotels and coming up to Michigan State before official visits start.
That is just wild to me. What are you hearing? Do we have a chance on, how close are we? Any crystal ball, any predictions on any of these guys?
So for all of these guys, I would say Jordan Hall is somebody that we have thought about crystal balling. Myself, Corey Robinson, Stephen Brooks, like the guys at 24/7, we've thought about crystal balling him there. I think right now the thing is just that we don't know kind of when he plans to commit. So if he does stick to his July sort of commitment date and he does take that official visit to Michigan State, I'm comfortable saying that at that point Michigan State would be the leader, in my opinion.
Wow.
For the other guys, I don't think they are in a rush to commit anytime soon. I don't even know who their top group is right now. But as long as their visits stay in place, Michigan State, the second they get a kid on campus, they suddenly have a fighting shot for anybody.
And then David Washington Jr., wide receiver out of St. Joe's Prep.
Yeah. He's a guy that I've actually talked to, the guy that he works with in terms of preparation and training out there in Las Vegas. Same guy that actually trained Kaiten Hauser back when he was home in Nevada during the summers, Kenny Ray. He's a kid that he's ranked 22nd in the entire nation before today's update. I'm not sure what he is right now, but this is a kid that, once again, far away, ranked really high, coming up to Michigan State on his own dime, starting to see a pattern here. So we'll see. He does not hold a Michigan State offer yet, But when a kid makes the effort to come from across the country like this, and he's ranked that high, I wouldn't be surprised if he gets an offer either on this visit or his next visit if he chooses to take one. So yeah, just furthering the pattern of highly ranked kids far away, having a positive perception of Michigan State, coming here on their own dime.
So right now you have us predicted we're 11th, 12th, 13th. What did I say?
Sounds about right. I think 12th is what I saw last week. I don't know what's happened this week, but that sounds about right.
And then I read an article where we're expecting possibly 3 commits this month, possibly.
Possibly,
maybe.
yeah. I can see a couple guys after the spring game finally deciding, hey, I've visited here several times. Time to kind of maybe wrap things up. So I think that's
anybody off the top of your mind that you're thinking?
Cole Dellinger is a guy that comes to mind there.
He's a kid out of Clarkston.
Yep, that is correct. Clarkston, 4-star. His brother went to LSU, Garrett Dellinger, 2 cycles ago. Cole visited LSU. You'd think, oh, this kid, his brother's down at LSU. LSU recently won a national title. They might have the lead. But no, myself, my colleagues, Alan True, who covers the Midwest, we're kind of hearing Michigan State's the leader there. And he's a kid that has visited Michigan State more times than I can count, going all the way back to since the pandemic dead period was lifted back last June. Came here, really enjoyed himself at Spartan.con July 31st last year. Came up here with Brendan Parachek, who's a current 4-star commit for Michigan State. These are guys that once you start to see them visit 5, 6, 7 times, in-state kids leading for a while, that's where we kind of start to see, okay, this is a guy that might be in that mode where he's willing to commit soon. So the crystal balls are in there. I don't anticipate needing to change that. Not sure when he might commit, but that is a guy that comes to mind as someone that might commit in April.
What other crystal balls are in?
Right now, so we usually don't put in the crystal balls based on just gut feeling. If I were to do that, I would say Inau Etta is a guy, a 4-star defensive end, top 100 from Texas. He's a guy that visited Michigan State, visiting Michigan State again here this upcoming official visit season. He's one of those guys that Brandon Jordan is his pull.
Oh, yeah. Brandon
Jordan got the job, and immediately he's scheduling a visit to Michigan State. He wants to play in the Big Ten in Midwest country, he said. And he's a kid that Andrew DePape, a current 4-star commit, who, by the way, is Michigan State's highest ranked out-of-state commit in 7 years.
Out of Iowa.
Yes, out of Iowa. He committed within 3 or 4 weeks of Brandon Jordan getting the job. Wasn't even on Michigan, wasn't even considering Michigan State much before Brandon Jordan. So these are kind of the storylines that you kind of gravitate to when you're trying to gauge where is the potential of this class. Where are the positions of strength? And defensive end, I think, can carry Michigan State to a top 10, top 15 kind of class this year. You start landing a couple 5-stars, maybe you get closer to the top 5 range, but that's kind of where my head goes when you start looking at where recruiting is trending.
Very interesting. DePape is also the honorary recruiting coordinator.
Master recruiter
on Twitter as well.
Yep. Him and the chief of propaganda.
Chief of propaganda. Yeah, he's on the staff. He'll be when Mel's hoisting the natty one day, chief propaganda will be standing next to him.
Yep.
Mark my word.
Yep.
Because I think he lives in Twitter. He might live inside of Twitter because he is everywhere.
Yeah, lives inside the woodshed.
He does. He is so enjoyable. Chief, you do a great job, Chief. Any other 23s that we should keep an eye on that you think?
Yeah, so one of the things I've been really impressed with this past cycle here, Michigan State has had tons of offensive line recruits visit, take unofficial visits. The past month or so, that has just been off the charts in terms of what Coach Cap has done in that regard. The names that really stick out to me, 4-star, top 100 offensive tackle from New Jersey, Chase Basantis, spent 3 days in Michigan State here I want to say 2 weeks ago, maybe last week.
He is high on Cap's list, boy. Yeah. He is high.
Yeah, 5-star Samson Okunlola from Massachusetts.
Absolutely.
Yeah. These are guys, that are coming back for official visits in June. Samson is actually a guy that told my colleague Corey that he's not opposed to committing after only taking 2 or 3 official visits. So he's not one of those kids that's going to extend it to National Signing Day, kind of like a Keontae Goodwin thing. He's a guy that came here, visited Michigan State, actually also visited Michigan and then told their reporters in the article, I was coming to the state to visit Michigan State. So I figured, why not also go to Michigan? So you kind of get an insight there of why he really came to the state of Michigan, and it was from Michigan State.
Very
you kind of have some of those names, and the amount of guys right after Basantes and Okunlola who are still very good but not top 100 guys, that part of that recruiting board is almost just as impressive. Like you have top 247 guys like Shamarud Umarov, a guy from Georgia. You have Miles McVeigh. You have Peyton Kirkland. The list goes on and on.
What states are these guys from?
Kirkland is from Florida. Umarov is from Georgia. McVeigh is from Missouri. These again, you see the kind of the flavor.
We gotta get Justin. Justin's got to get a job. We got to hire this guy.
So,
I mean, Saeed, you listening?
No doubt.
So you kind of see all these guys coming from outside of the bubble on their own dime. I keep reiterating that is what really indicates to you the level of interest these kids have. So you somehow do miss on some of these 5-star top of 75 kids. Your guys in that next tier, they are at a higher level than I have ever seen in terms of Michigan State offensive line recruiting.
Wow. Impressive. Very impressive. So we need to have Justin on more. We as the season goes and to tell us what the cycle is. So 23
Right.
the 23s, we got a big weekend next spring games, big weekend.
Huge weekend. I always mention this anytime someone asks me about the spring game. Last year Michigan State had over 30 guys come to the game. This was with the attendance limit, which required the recruits to have tickets. The staff couldn't do anything to help with tickets because it was a dead period. So they had 30 kids, a lot of highly ranked kids, show up to campus on their own, somehow try to get tickets, wake up in the morning. And that was the enthusiasm you saw last year with those barriers to entry kind of in place. Can you imagine this year after an 11-win season, no attendance limit, you just simply show up, the culture and what the staff has been able to do here? I think what you're going to see with this year's spring game, it's just going to have an energy and momentum that stems from it on the recruiting trail that I haven't seen in terms of Michigan State recruiting.
That's exciting. So we got spring game,
yep,
and then the 24 start in June, right? The recruiting period, or there's a dead period.
So what happens is in the month of May you're not going to see much, but in June is when these 2023s that we're talking about right now visiting on their own dime. That's when they can start coming and taking official visits, and that's where you're going to get insight as fans of who is the staff prioritizing, because not only everyone that's like, hey coach, can I come take an official visit, is going to get one. So official visits, exciting time for me to cover. You kind of get insight. These are the guys the staff is prioritizing. These are the kids that are, because you only get 5. These are the kids that think Michigan State is a possible home for them. So June, July, that's where you get a lot of insight on who the most feasible targets are in this cycle. And then September 1st is really where you start to hear a lot about the 2024s, because that is when coaches can start to make direct contact first with the 2024 kids. Right now, the kids can engage the coaching staff, call the coaches, but that's when the coaching staff can start to get a hold of these kids on their own without those kids calling first. So that's really when 2024 recruiting starts. But June, July, it's going to be a great month for 2023 recruiting.
Wow, that's fantastic. One last thing for you.
Yeah.
Let's jump to basketball recruiting.
Yeah.
How many scholarships do we have open?
So my estimation is if Hauser does not come back, I think you're looking at 3. If Hauser does come back, I think you're looking at 2.
Fears takes one of them.
Oh, so if you're looking at it that way, then it also depends on who they kind of get from the portal, how much eligibility that guy has, who decides to come back with an extra year after this year, like a Malik Hall. Is he going to come back the year after? So in that regard, I don't think scholarships are much of a worry. For the 2023 recruiting cycle, you're going to be able to get your Jeremy Fears. You're going to be able to get an Xavier Booker, possibly even another guy. So I don't think they're going to be too hand-tied in that regard of how many scholarships they have, but I'm not able to give you an exact number until those unknown variables kind of sort themselves out.
Well, I'll tell you, Justin Thinn is the real deal. Huh? With Stray, this is a whole
advertised.
Whole nother world we need to learn more about, this whole recruiting world. That's the lifeline. You know, we like to come watch the finished product. Oh, yeah. He'll be, believe me, we're going to be on vacation, you and I, in June, July. He's going to be running our show. Him and Corey. He bring on Alan True. So, Justin, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me, you guys.
Thank you very much for filling. Did a great job. Really appreciate your insight. Always appreciate your knowledge as it relates to sports and recruiting. Mr. Strayhorn, it was a pleasure. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. I am Brian Mosallam, your co-host, along with my co-host, Jason Strayhorn. Once again, thank you, Justin Thind. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Good night and go green.
He stuffed him. He stuffed him. He stuffed him. Nice block. Wow. Great penetration. Surge through the middle of that. Michigan State first.